A group of MMSD teachers plans to show up at tomorrow's school board meeting fighting for a principal who they say was wrongfully fired. The school district confirming yesterday was Dr. Jeffrey Copeland's last day as the leader of Senate Middle School after less than a month on the job. NBC 15's Elizabeth Wattis joins us now. And Elizabeth, you spoke with the head of the teachers union, now stepping in to support Senate Middle School staff who they say want to see Copeland back on the job.
Yeah, Maria, the details into why Dr. Copeland was fired are still up in the air. But Mike Jones, the president of Teachers Union, says Senate staff, they don't agree that whatever happened was a fireable offense. They say Dr. Copeland created a safe and stable environment in their school, and they want him back. MTI does not represent Dr. Copeland, but Jones says the union is stepping in to provide support for teachers. Jones says while all the facts of the case haven't surfaced just yet, teachers deserve transparency from the district into what happened and how the decision to fire Copeland was made. Jones says at the end of the day, decisions should be about creating stability for students.
That comes with consistent communication and not cutting, the staff out of decision making or how to move forward, because the staff are really going to know, what makes sense as, collaboratively moving forward, especially if you're going to kind of continue down this path where you're removing the leader.
The district tells me they are bringing in 2 retired staff members to serve as co-interim principals while they search for a permanent replacement. Dr. Copeland has 30 days to file a grievance with the district in order to be reinstated. That school board meeting where teachers say they'll voice their concerns, that is tomorrow, set for 6:30. Live in the newsroom tonight, Elizabeth Wattis, NBC 15 News.